Hello everyone and welcome to something I've actually been really excited for. And this is an MTG Arena video. And I'm going to be doing a video for some newbies, because I feel like there aren't enough of those. And I feel like with the open beta coming out hopefully soon, we're going to have a lot of people who maybe have played other digital card games that have never been introduced to Magic. So this is kind of like a guide for you guys out there, and I'm going to be talking about a couple of things. I'm talking about, obviously, a lot about deck building, a lot about how to identify good cards versus bad cards, and just general ideas in Magic the Gathering deck construction, because this is going to be geared a lot towards people who played like Hearthstone, because I know that game is very popular, and hopefully this game will draw some of those people over who have been wanting something a little more depth. This is in my opinion, I think this game is much better. And I've been very sad that there's not a Magic shop near where I live, so I haven't been able to play. But this came out. I'm so excited. So, first of all, we're going to talk about some of the guidelines to deck building. This is a 60 card deck. I'm going to be doing this for pretty much super noobs and hopefully some tips for people who aren't super noobs. So yeah, you build a 60 card deck out of any of the 5 colors. You can, in any combination, generally decks are going to have 2 colors or 1 color. I guess actually in this, I say that in this format, there's actually, you can actually even do some pretty cool 3 color decks. In MTG Arena, you're probably going to want to stick with 2 for a while, because when you get to 3 colors, it starts to get complicated because of your mana base. So, talking about the lands here, of course, this is how you get your mana in this game. You have to draw them. You do not get it every turn. You should probably know most of this basics. And the best lands are actually going to be rares, like Sulphur Falls and Isolated Chapel. So the best lands are going to be rares most of the time, and it can be really hard to make a 3-color mana base without these special lands. But you can do it if you're careful and you're careful what cards you're putting in your deck. So, first of all, we're going to look at some cards here. I got some cards I want to show you guys. Some powerful cards, first of all. I want to show you guys some Sweltering Suns. Without caps lock, I don't actually think it matters. Sweltering Suns. Let's put this card in our deck. This card is a very, very powerful card. If we look here, we got deals 3 damage to each creature, board wipe, plus it can cycle, which is really important because in control matchups, you're not going to be able to use this card because there's almost no chance of them dropping a minion that even has that much health, or if they do, it's going to be like a 1/1 that just like had an effect. So it's pretty much worthless in control matches, I'm saying. But this card's insane against aggro decks, and then you can cycle it, which makes this card an incredibly powerful card. This is going to be, if you're playing red, man, if you're playing red, anything but pure aggro, you're going to be playing this card. And I'm showing you this card as like a baseline for power, because I'm going to be showing you another card. Golden Demise, a card that is much less powerful. So let's compare these 2 cards here. Okay, so Golden Demise, 2 black, 1 colorless. Here we got 2 red, 1 colorless. What does this card do for us? First of all, it only gives -2/-2. So, giving -2/-2 has its own set of benefits. For instance, you could cast this card and then attack with your creatures, and all of his creatures are weaker. But it also is only -2/-2, which is pretty much nothing. And if you don't have Ascend, this also affects your creatures anyway. So you cast this without Ascend, and it doesn't even matter that you gave his creatures -2/-2, because you also gave it to your creatures. So this card also, then if playing against control matchups, this card literally doesn't do anything. It just sits in your hand and does nothing. As we're with Sweltering Suns, we can cycle it. You see, it's some nuances that you really got to look out for. Like, this card is decent enough if you don't have any other options, but this is like the upgrade. Like, this is the nuts, and this is like I'm playing this because I have to. So that's just some general stuff that like I said, you really gotta watch in Magic. Cards, their power levels are very variable. And it's not always easy to spot what cards are particularly powerful. We're gonna look at one of my decks here. We're gonna look at one of my decks. My Disco Control. We'll do this one here. And of course, I have nothing but good cards in this deck. And well, actually I have nothing but good cards and one bad card. I don't think this card is very good, but I play it just because it's fun. And I think, that's the essence of Magic. Playing cards just because they're fun. Let's look at some more targeted cards. We'll look at something here, like Torment of Scarabs. Now, when you look at this card, you have to think about what this card does for you in the game. And you gotta always think about that with any card. What am I using this card for? What is the purpose of this card? What is this card good at doing? What is it decks is going to be good against, or whatever. This card in particular, in this deck, this is my win condition. This card is how I win the game. This card combined with my Angrat the Flame Chain, could probably have two of them in the deck, but we're thinking about it. And Torment of Hailfire is the other big one. Chandra's here. Torment of Hailfire does the same thing as the Torment of Scarabs. Let's take a quick closer look at it. At the beginning of Enchanted player upkeep, that player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So pretty much this just bleeds them dry of resources. Every turn, they're having to lose some resource. And eventually they run out, right? And then Torment of Hailfire comes in for the finisher, where we can just tap out all of our mana and just use that effect like 5, 6, 7 times. And that's how we win the game. So what do we do in between winning the game? Well, we don't die, and we draw cards. That's the essence of a control deck, right? So we're drawing cards, we're killing his creatures, and you just have to figure out what's the most efficient way to do these things. You gotta think, what cards do I need to resolve to win the game, and how do I do that? And then how do I stay alive long enough to do that? Of course, that's control decks. Take a look at another deck here. This one is a cat tribal deck. Tribal, of course, means that it has cat synergies, or has synergies with whatever it is. Since it's a cat tribal deck, it has cat synergies, of course. And this is a more mid-rangey, kind of aggro-y deck. And what am I doing here? I'm playing cats. I'm buffing cats. I'm protecting my cats. And I'm just trying to bash his face, or build a board that he can't oppose. And this is a totally different playstyle, because I'm just slamming creatures as much as I can, and then putting buffs on them with these cortages, and I'm just trying to win the game at a reasonable pace. Because I don't want him to go off, and I don't want to get board wiped, and I need to be careful, because there are some total board wipes in this game. And so in this, you have to think, what are the best creatures? And you also have to think, what's the value of playing these cards? Like, for instance, a card like Sacred Cat, this card isn't that great, but it has extra value because I'm playing the cats. So because I'm playing the cats, this also, it gets buffed whenever I buff my other cats with my Radiant Destiny, or with my Vanquisher's Banner. I think I actually have 2 of these. I was going to put another one in this deck. Boom. And we can drop a... actually, I don't know what's a good one to drop. Probably... It's always hard making cuts like this. Probably a Secrets of the Golden City. That's a good draw spell, but we don't need to draw that bad. Anyway, so you're always kind of looking for these. When you play, after you build a deck, you gotta play it to figure out what's wrong with it. So, like I said, this deck has a totally different game plan than my other decks, or my other control deck that I showed you. Trying to beat my opponent down, trying to do that. But when we're looking at these decks, there's so many, unlike in Hearthstone, where pretty much when you're trying to think about how you win, in Hearthstone there's two ways you think about how you win. You either say, I'm going to attack my opponent with creatures until they die, right? Like, that's a game plan, a very broad game plan that is seen across many Hearthstone decks. Another one, of course, is combo or miracle, where it's like I'm going to assemble a amount of cards in my hand, and then I'm going to do all kinds of stuff that'll lead to me then winning the game. And that's pretty much what you have in Hearthstone, right? I mean, inside of that, there's aggro, mid-range, which is self-explanatory. You either play a lot of little dudes, or you play some little dudes and some medium dudes, and then like a couple big dudes. And that's pretty much the end of it. In this, you really have to think about what's going to win you the game, because you can't always just put creatures in your deck and say, I'm going to attack my opponent, and then they're going to die. Because your opponent has a lot more interaction with what you're doing. So your gameplay might be totally thrown off. And also, you can't choose how to trade your creatures, so you have to think a lot more about the value of your creatures and what they do for you. So creatures with stuff like Double Strike is like, all of a sudden, Double Strike is one of the best keywords in the game, because it makes your opponent really have to be very careful when they're blocking. So Double Strike it attacks with First Strike, which is another keyword. And what that means is when it engages with a creature, before anything else happens, your creature will do damage to the enemy's creature first, and then normal damage happens. But if you have Double Strike, okay, maybe I'm not explaining this very well. Actually, no, I think I am. It's so complicated trying to explain this maybe to someone who only has a vague understanding. So First Strike happens. Your creature has First Strike, their creature doesn't. Your creature attacks their creature takes damage. And now, if your creature only has First Strike, the enemy creature attacks your creature, and then that's combat. But if your creature has Double Strike, your creature attacks their creature, and then both creatures attack each other if the enemy creature survived. Hopefully that was a decent enough explanation. The point is that I'm trying to get across is abilities like that you have to really take into consideration, because you're not choosing how the enemy is going to block. They're going to choose how they're going to block. So having these abilities really makes them have to be careful and tiptoe around effects you might also have, because you can then cast more cards from your hand. They can cast more cards from their hand. There's always another layer on top of what is happening right in front of you, because you don't know what's in your opponent's hand most of the time, and there's always that chance that they can blow you out with something. So this is a combo deck that I have, and this deck is also it's combo. It's also Wizard Tribal, but this is blue-white, and what I'm trying to do in this is I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to draw lots of cards. I'm playing out creatures to hold the board, and I'm building up to my big guy here, which is my Temporal Sundering, which allows me to take an extra turn after this one. But my big thing here is I'm actually trying to copy this spell with other effects. So I'm trying to copy it with my wizard. Where is she? She allows me to copy a spell that I'm currently casting. So that's actually not that easy to do, because my take an extra turn spell here costs 6 mana. She costs 4 mana. That's 10 mana. How do I get 10? So now I've come up with a thing that I can do, right? This is a cool combo that I can do. I say to myself, I want to win the game by multi-casting Karn's Temporal Sundering. So then I have to think to myself, how do I do that? So I amass mana, I put primal artifacts in my deck. This will also copy a spell that I cast. Okay, when it transforms, it gives me a mana, so that's closer to my goal, and then it also will copy any spell that uses that mana. Okay, so what else do I do here? I also play Spell Swindle. I actually should put more Spell Swindle in my deck. I think I'm going to. This is a counter spell, and when I counter their spell, I get these tokens that I can destroy for 1 mana, equal to the cost of the spell they cast. So they cast a 5-cost spell, I just got 5 mana. The 5 mana only works once, but I only needed to work once to win the game. And then my other win conditions are Azor the Lawbringer, and he kind of just beats the enemy down and lets me draw lots of cards, gain lots of life, and just win. Immortal Sun makes all my spells cost less. So, and I draw extra cards. My creatures get bigger. I do have a decent amount of creatures in this deck, even though it is combo. And I'm countering my opponent's spells. I'm gaining incremental value with my wizard synergy. And yeah, this is just an overview of a whole lot of different decks that you can attempt to play, and you just kind of have to look at cards. And this first thing you always do when you're building a deck is you gotta think to yourself, how do I win the game? So there's a couple ways that you can start by building a deck besides just like looking through cards. You just pick cards that you gotta. I'm sorry, this is complicated a little bit. You have to find a card that'll win you the game. That's pretty much the very first thing. You have to find a card and say, this card's really good. This card will win me the game. How do I make it win me the game? Or a combination of a couple cards, right? Or a few cards. And then once you say, okay, this is how I win the game, then you worry about everything else. Or in the midst of that, that's when you come up with okay, I'm going to play lots of creatures. And then that's how I'm going to win the game, right? I want to win the game by playing flying creatures and playing counter spells and flying over my opponents and whatever. Like, you just have to come up with that general game plan. You can't just put a bunch of good cards in your deck and expect it to work. That's not really how Magic works. Right, I feel like that's not how Hearthstone works either, but you can get away with that a lot more in Hearthstone by just putting in a bunch of good cards and being like, hey, now I'm just going to like attack and win eventually. And I mean, that's a pretty broad overview of a lot of things, and that's pretty much what I wanted to get across in this video. I think I did an okay job. I messed up a couple times there. It was like a little iffy, but I think I did a pretty good job of getting my broad point across. And I'm going to be making a whole bunch more videos, specific deck techs and gameplays on my decks, that'll be showing you how they play, and maybe you could play them yourself. You could get creative with it, try to put your own stuff in. That's the main thing I want hopefully I can get from this, is I want people to experience Magic in a more pure way where they're building their own decks, man, because that's how you play Magic, man. You build your own deck that you think is cool. Don't just freaking net deck. And it can be really difficult. And when you first build a deck, expect to lose quite a lot, and then just keep coming back to it. Just keep coming back to like, okay, this card doesn't work. You're gonna find a lot of cards you thought were good that aren't good, and that's just how it goes all the time. And then you're gonna find some cards you thought were good that are freaking great, and they're gonna carry your games. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that it was insightful in some way, hopefully. I just threw a lot of information at you, so hopefully you can like take that in and run with it and do something. And yeah, I'll be making more MTG videos in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.